Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday. Today, Sony released a 9-minute video all about the PlayStation 5 Pro. It was all of the technical specs because the PS5 Pro is something that's been rumored for quite some time, and as of today, we know it's real, and we got a chance to see it in action, or at least see it in action on a YouTube video. So I watched it, and I have thoughts, and based on what I've seen online, everybody's got some thoughts because people have been having a lot to say. There's a lot of buzz around this video, and probably for good reason. So let's talk about that. So I watched the video, and if you don't already know, you probably do, the PlayStation 5 has been out for a few years. This is a upgraded version of the PlayStation 5. It won't play like completely new games. It's not the PlayStation 6. But if you put a PS5 game in the PS5 Pro, it'll look better. And this is not a new concept. Like they did this with the PS4 as well. So they showed the games side by side. They showed a game running on the PS5 and a game running on the PS5 Pro. And if they're changing the frame rate, that's noticeable. That's noticeable for people. Every once in a while, I'll hear people be like, I can't see the difference between 30 and 60. If you're watching it side by side, you probably can. Now, you may not care. That's completely different. But I think most people can tell the difference. So yes, if you're comparing 60 frames per second versus 30 frames per second, yeah, it's clear. Like, yeah, that's noticeable. The problem is, the minute that they're not comparing frame rates and they're just comparing the PS5 Pro versus the PS5 in performance mode, and they're both 60 frames per second, it becomes a lot harder to notice. I watched this video on my iMac in 4K 60, and at 4K 60, you can notice the details, but just barely. Just barely. And anyone watching on anything less than a 4K display will not see any sort of difference. Frame rate, you can tell. But watching on anything smaller, no. You're not going to be able to tell. And the thing is, I think this was a fun watch for me because I'm like, the PlayStation 5 is good. And that's probably the big takeaway here, is that the PlayStation 5 it's a good system. Would it be nice to play some of the games with more graphical fidelity? I mean, sure. Games are first and foremost about the experience. Graphics are important because they can add to the experience, but they're first and foremost about the experience. But the line's blurry, man. Like, the PlayStation 5 is already very, very good, and the PlayStation 5 Pro, yeah, it's better. It's better. The problem is, it's hard to notice, right? Like, it's not impossible. Like, I'm someone that has a lot of interest in video and in fidelity and things like that. Like, that's important to me. So it's not that I don't see a difference. It's there. But is it that big of a difference? No. And how much is that worth to people? Because Sony is banking on the fact that it will be worth $700. And that is a tall ask. So when I watched this, I'm experiencing it, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I mean, it's better, but like, this is not a huge jump, especially when you're comparing it at the same frame rate. And then they got to the price, and I was like, dear God in heaven, $700 is an astronomical amount of money to ask for a fairly small upgrade. And the thing is, I can't imagine exactly who this is for, because the people that would probably be like most interested in this, like diehard Sony people, already have a PS5. So they've already invested $500 into getting a PS5, and to ask them to get a PS5 Pro is asking them to spend another $700. Not to mention the fact that this model does not come with a disk drive. And as someone who values physical media, as you can tell by just looking behind me, that's concerning. But don't worry, you can buy one for $80. Oh, and I hope that you have room to put it horizontal, because if you want it vertical, you have to buy a vertical stand, which is another like $20 or $30. So if you need it to be vertical and you need a disk drive, you're looking at $800 before you even factor in tax. It's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. And the reaction from the internet was pretty swift. It was like, Sony, what on earth? $700 is asking so much, especially when people are watching this and they're thinking, this looks the same. This looks the same. And like, does it look the same? It's not the same. Like, I see where the differences are, but is that worth that much money? No. Even if you didn't have a PS5 and you were in the market to get a PS5 or a PS5 Pro, I don't think it would even be worth the extra $200 for most people. Most people would look at that difference and be like, yeah, I'll save the $200. So it's a very interesting product. It's a very interesting product. I'm sure that they will sell some. But yeah, the general reaction today is extremely negative, and I get it. I think it's a little confusing, to be honest, because I would have expected the PS5 Pro to have been cheaper than $700, and I would have expected the normal PS5 to have like a price drop or something. And that's not what happened. Instead, the PS5 Pro debuts at $700, and you have to pay additional for a disk drive and for a vertical stand. Now, I know most people don't even want a disk drive. I get that. And that saves them money by not including it. But for someone like myself who, I would want the physical media, like, that just makes the console even more prohibitively expensive. Now, the funny thing throughout all of this is I've been reading online today, people's reaction to this. There's so many people that are like, oh my God, Nintendo, please. Now is the time to announce the successor to the Switch. And in fairness, like, we are supposed to be getting pretty close to that. That is supposed to be coming at some point soon. I don't know if they'll have a price with it, but I can say with some amount of certainty that it won't cost $700. Now, will it perform anywhere close to the PS5 Pro? No. Will it perform anywhere close to the PS5? No. But it's first and foremost about experiences, and the experiences on Switch have been pretty good. Nintendo is typically, for speaking, for myself, like the best, my favorite first-party developer. It's not that there haven't been good games that have been exclusive to the Xbox and certainly the PlayStation. There's a long history of that. But in modern day, I think the Switch is kind of leading the way when it comes to exclusives. All of that is, of course, subjective, so that's just my opinion. But, whoo boy, yeah. I think at some point, prices on all of this stuff will come down, but I don't know what Sony was expecting, I guess. Like, there's a part of me that's like, certainly you must have known that the reaction to this was going to be extreme. And, like, they very bravely left the comments on this video, too. And I'm like, wow, that's a big deal. Anyway, yeah, so that's it. I'm super curious to hear what your thoughts are. I'm sure that a lot of you probably feel very similar, but there might be some of you watching that are very intrigued by the product. And if you are, that's fine. But I really want to know if you already have a PlayStation 5, because that's the really hard sell for me, is that if someone doesn't have a PlayStation 5 at all and money doesn't seem to be a huge issue for them, then I could see them just choosing the Pro. But like, it's so difficult if you already have a PS5, because the margin of improvement it's not big, and to completely rebuy another console, that's asking a lot. I'm sure that there's going to be folks that do it. I'm sure they'll probably, trade in their systems to GameStop or whatever. But yeah, I want to hear from folks and see what their exact situation is. So don't be afraid if you are someone that's like, I saw the PS5 Pro and I want to get it. Like, don't be afraid to comment. And everyone else, like, don't give that person a hard time. People are free to spend their money however they want, but I just really want to know what the situation is for anyone that's buying one, because it's hard for me to imagine that they're moving from the base model to the Pro. I don't remember what the cost difference was for the PS4 and the PS4 Pro. I just know it wasn't quite this drastic. And I understand that, you know, to some degree you have to account for inflation, but like, my God, man, that's a lot. Anyway, all right, I'm done, for real. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, let's meet back tomorrow. Ciao.